It seems like every semester I have a few students ask me about this problem, and so I just wanted to take a few minutes to go through it uh, and show you how we set up the equation and then also how to solve it. So Cynthia wants to buy a rug for a room that's 24 feet wide and 31 feet long. She wants to leave a uniform strip of floor around the rug. She can afford to buy 368 square feet of carpeting. What dimensions should the rug have? And so the rug is here in blue, and the entire room is includes the gray strip around the edge of the rug. And the key idea is that the strip is uniform. The strip of floor is uniform all the way around the rug. We don't know how wide that strip is, and so we're just going to call it X. And it's the same on all four sides of the rug. And so now we can write the length and the width of the rug. Again, the rug is in blue, and so the length here is this distance right here. And so what is that distance in terms of X? Well, the entire room is 31 feet. And then we just need to subtract off the length X on one side and subtract off the length X on the other side. So you could write that as 31 minus X, or even better would be to say that the length is 31 minus 2X. And then similarly, the width is this distance here, and so it would be 24 minus 2X. And remember, we know that the area of that carpet is 368, and so area is just length times width for the rectangle. So we can write 31 minus 2X times 24 minus 2X is equal to 368. And so here is a quadratic equation, and we need to solve it. So the first thing we should do is we should set it equal to 0. And before we can do that, we need to multiply out the two factors here on the left. Of course, we might like to solve this by factoring, but factoring only works when you have 0 on the other side. So we need to multiply this out. We need to subtract the 368 to the other side, and then we need to factor it, and then we need to factor the equation. Okay, the problem gets just a little bit tedious because the numbers are large, but we can get through it, and you can always just punch these numbers into your scientific calculator as you go along. So 31 times 24 is 744. And then 31 times 2x gives you a minus 62x. Minus 2x times 24 gives you minus 48x. And then 4x squared, all that's equal to 368. So let's go ahead now and just reorder the terms on the left. Let's put the 4x squared first. Let's combine the two middle terms and get minus 110x plus 744 is equal to 368. And then let's subtract 368 on both sides. And we've got 4x squared minus 110x plus 376 is equal to 0. And so now the quadratic equation is in standard form, and we just need to choose a method and solve. So usually we say that the first method we think of is factoring, and we can solve this by factoring. I'll do that in just a second. But the disadvantage to factoring here is that the numbers are so large. And so it might be worthwhile just to skip the factoring and just go straight to the quadratic formula and use your calculator to do the arithmetic and get the answer that way. Anyway, let's go through the factoring. It's worth observing that each of these numbers here is divisible by 2, and so we should just divide off that common factor of 2, and so we'll get 2x squared. 110 divided by 2 gives you 55x, and then 376 divided by 2 is 188, and that's equal to 0. So now we can go ahead and factor. Since the coefficient on x squared is not 1, we need to do factor by grouping, and so that means that we need to find two numbers that multiply to the product of this leading coefficient and this constant. So 2 times 188 means m times n is equal to 376. And m plus n is equal to negative 55. So again, this could be a little tricky now because 376 is such a large number. So if you're going to do it, then you might just start with negative 1 times negative 376 and say, well, those don't add up to negative 55. And then negative 2 times negative 188, and those don't add up to negative 155. You can see this could be quite tedious, but actually we'll get to the answer here pretty quickly. So I just started listing the factors, and then notice that when I get to negative 8 plus negative 47 is in fact negative 55. So these are the two numbers m and n that we want to use to do the factor by grouping. So we're going to come back up here, and remember what we do. We're going to write the middle term now as the sum of two terms. The 2x squared just comes down, but then negative 55x gets rewritten as minus 8x minus 47x. And then the 188 just comes down, and all that's equal to 0. And so now factor by grouping means that we group the first two terms together and take out a common factor of 2x. And then we group the next two terms together, and 47 goes into 188 4 times. And we know that this looks good because what's left over in the parentheses is the same up here in front and afterward in the next two terms. So now we can just factor out an x minus 4, and then we have 2x minus 47 left over. And of course at this point we've got our quadratic factored, and so we really want to come back and just double check that it's correct. So we just want to multiply this back out. X times 2x is 2x squared. This is a minus 47x minus 8x, so that is minus 55x. And then negative 4 times negative 47 is in fact positive 188. So that looks real good. And we can finish solving the equation. We can just set each factor equal to 0. And we have x is equal to 4. Or we have x is equal to 47 over 2, which is 23.5, or you could just write 23.5. Now, remember this value of x represents the width of the exposed floor around the carpet. And so 4 feet sounds good. But 23.5 feet is too big, because if you had 23.5 feet of exposed floor over here on the left and another 23.5 feet of exposed floor on the right, there wouldn't be any room for the carpet in the middle, because there's only 31 feet total all the way across the room. So the 23.5 feet is a bad answer, and we have to throw it out. And so the only reasonable answer for x is 4 feet. So x is 4 feet. And then we want to be just a little bit careful here. So we figured out that x is 4 feet. And then the question asks, what are the dimensions that the rug should have? So the length then, so the length would be 31 minus 2 times 4, which is 23 feet. And the width would be 24 minus 2 times 4, which is 16 feet. So the dimensions of the rug are right here, and that's our final answer. Okay, one more thing I want to say about this is here we have a quadratic equation that needs to be solved, and we can solve it by factoring. We did that, but the quadratic formula might be easier. And so if we use the quadratic formula, do you remember what that is? We would get x is equal to negative b, which is negative 55, plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times a, which is 2, times c, which is 188, all over 2a. And then you can go through that calculation and see that you get the same answers. Underneath the radical, you'll wind up with square root of 1,521. And then square root of 1,521 is 39. And so we wind up with 55 plus 39 divided by 4, which is 23.5, or 55 minus 39 over 4, which is 4. So those are the same two answers that we got when we factored. Okay, I hope this helps. Good luck.